Good evening. You may or may not know, but we are going to be looking at Psalm 23 tonight, if you hadn't guessed already. Before I get started with this, though, I do want to share something with you, and just because I'm going to ask something of you as well. The elders have asked me to get together a VBS for this year. I know you're thinking, whoa, this summer is almost over. Well, we're going to do a one day on a Saturday. This will be Saturday in September, and the date is the 13th, Saturday, September 13th, and it'll be from 10 a.m. until noon. And it's what we're asking for is for people to sign up to help teach all of the classes and some assistance in some of the younger classes especially. And so the plan is for that, the concept of the day is going to be called I Know My Redeemer Lives. And it's going to be about the resurrection of Jesus and just what that means for us, what that does for us, and some reasons why we believe that it's true and that's a thing. I'm going to develop an outline, so don't think that you have to come up with everything on your own. I'm going to have an outline of just the main bullet points of what you need to do in your classes and what we're going to do together. And if you could sign up for that, I'm going to try to have the outline, Lord willing, by next Sunday, so you'll have some time to prepare, think through what kind of materials you want to make or use or whatever, and that's what we're trying to do. And I do plan on having an adult class as well, so everybody can come and be part of that, but that'll be 10 a.m. to 12 noon on September 13th. So we have a sign-up sheet. It's on the back bulletin board on the back there. And they're wide open, so choose your favorite and go on. And if your favorite's already chosen, choose the next one, and that would be great. That would be really, really awesome if we could get that taken care of. There's a lot going on right now, and I know this will be more so of a back-to-school type event. So just be ready for that, and hopefully we can make it there, and we can do some good. Tonight, though, we are looking at Psalm 23. And it's a psalm that we're obviously very familiar with. Almost everybody in the world knows Psalm 23. It's the most frequently used psalm in funerals. And it's just, there's something timeless about those words that just really resonate with us and that really touch us, that really stand out. And I think it gives a lot of comfort for a lot of reasons. Heard a lot about Psalm 23, and I want us to think about this in a different way tonight. So this, as you know, this is the fourth Sunday of the month, and as is our custom, I like to talk about something that was in the Bible reading plan that we got going on. And this month we've been primarily in the book of Psalms, also the New Testament and Acts, but we're going to focus on this psalm in particular. Hopefully you've been able to go through some of these and get more familiar with the Hebrew poetry and a lot of what David wrote and some other people as well. But Psalm 23 was written by David, and it's one that you probably, a lot of you might even have memorized. Like that's a thing that people do, and that's wouldn't be uncommon. I don't remember exactly where I heard the basis of this lesson from or saw it. I have no idea. It's been several years ago. But I found some things, and it was just really cool the way that this is put together. And so this is not, don't think I'm special, because I'm not, I guarantee that. But I want to share with you some things that I learned about this, because it was really helpful to see this. Do you know what David was doing in his early life? Do you know what his early life was like before he was anointed to be king? He was a shepherd, right? And as a shepherd, he got really familiar with sheep and how the whole shepherding enterprise works. And this, Psalm 23, we know how it starts, and it's the Lord is my shepherd, right? And really, every aspect of this psalm has something to do with how shepherds viewed sheep and what that whole process was like. There's a lot that I did not know about Middle Eastern shepherding practices back in the time period of the Bible. And there's a lot of really fascinating things. So really, if you think about it, shepherds, let me just start with sheep. Sheep are dumb. They're not very smart. And sheep, if left to their own accord, they're just going to wander around the same paths. They're going to do the same stuff all the time, and they will like pollute the ground that they are on. They typically just go around the same paths and all that. And if you think about that, there's a whole like ecological problem with that, lack of nutrients, and you're lacking a lot of what you need in the ecosystem, and you are going to cause a lot of problems. Shepherds, their job is to take the flock and move them to where they need to go. And a sheep's life is very much oriented about this process of constantly being on the move, constantly going somewhere else. And what would happen is a lot of times in the wintertime, that's where you would start your journey as a sheep. Maybe you have a newborn little baby. Is lamb? Yeah. So you have that. Or you buy sheep or whatever. You're there at the ranch, wherever you spend your winter. And what happens there at the winter, the shepherd it prepares a place eventually that they're going to go to in the summer months. Once all of the snow's gone and they could get up there, they're going to go on a journey. So this process starts at home on the ranch. The very first statement, and we're going to look at the journey of the sheep. The first statement there, the Lord is my shepherd. Every shepherd had a unique ear marking that they would like cut out in the sheep's ear. So they would literally take the sheep, put the ear down on like a wooden block, and take a knife or something and cut some kind of notch. And it was special for every shepherd. Every shepherd had their identifying mark, characteristic that they would do to say, hey, this sheep belongs to this shepherd. And so it belongs to this flock. You might think that that's pretty cruel and mean and all of this. It'd be pretty painful to go through, but that sheep is forever marked as identifying with that shepherd. And there's a similar language in the Old Testament about what happened if a slave wanted to like stay with their Hebrew master forever after the 7 years that they would stay with them. They would do the piercing of the ear. They would put their ear in the doorpost and have this like awl, and they would go through, and that's where we get the song "Pierce My Ear." If you've not heard of it, then that doesn't help you. But it's a great song, and it's showing that we identify with our master. And ultimately, if you think about it, the Lord is our shepherd. What we have to understand is Jesus is the one who owns us. And our identity should be someone who belongs to Jesus. And when it comes down to it in our life, if we don't let Jesus do the leading, and that's not who we make Lord of our lives, we're going to be in trouble. It's one thing to desire salvation from Jesus. It's a whole different thing to recognize Jesus as our Lord, as the one who is in charge, as the one we need to submit to. But even in the first words of this psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. He is the one that I am submitting to. And we need to realize that. And it's not just once you get baptized, you're good, you washed your sins away, and now you're free to live your life. You are now belonging to Jesus. He is the one who is in charge of your life. And we have to change our life to submit to the Lord. The next line in this, and going through, I shall not want. There's nothing else that we need. Once we realize that Jesus is our Lord, that Jesus is the one who gives us everything we need, we realize that our search has ended. We don't need to go anywhere else to fulfill any part of our lives, because Jesus is the one who does that. We can't just say, okay, I'm going to do this whole religion thing. I'll come to a worship service here and there, and that'll be good enough. We give our whole lives to Jesus. And that's what happens with the sheep. The sheep, they're not wandering around finding, is the grass greener over there? Like, that's a thing that people say, right? Well, no, it's not. Because the shepherd knows what the sheep need and will provide. That's what we have in Jesus, and that's what good sheep would have in a good shepherd. So we have contentment in life. And we realize that the only one who can really fill that for us as Christians is Jesus. Because you know what he does? He makes me lie down in green pastures. And so this part, what I want to do is talk about how we do need to let go of our worries. Interesting thing about sheep. In order for a sheep to lie down, there are 4 things that have to be true for that sheep to be able to lie down. 1, they have to be free from fear, free from tension, free from aggravation, and free from hunger. If all 4 of those things aren't true, they're not going to be lying down. So the only way to get a sheep to lie down is make sure it's completely provided for, that it has everything it's needing, and there's nothing else that it needs. And that's what it does. They're very timid animals, and if there's any kind of anxiety, they're just like, you don't want to spook them, you know? Same thing with us. I mean, there's a reason why he calls us sheep, because sometimes we're the same way. Does anybody in here ever let their anxiety get the best of them? I do. Yeah, all the time. And it's like, why? I know God's going to provide. I know God's going to take care of me. He even tells us in Matthew 6, do not worry. Like that's strong. We need to really focus on that and really remember that. Because if not, we're going to let the anxieties get the best of us, and we're not going to be able to lie down in green pastures. Because we're always going to be worried, well, what if this grass dries up? You know, and we always have these concerns. He provides for us. He makes sure we have what we need. And I'm not just talking about physically. Yes, he does take care of us physically. That is true. But spiritually, like, we need to find rest in Jesus to be able to understand that he does that for us. There's a lot of stuff that we can't control. And we just got to leave that to the shepherd. The shepherd is able to provide and take care of us. He leads me beside still waters. And I think ultimately with water, we understand he's quenching our thirst and showing us what we need. Another thing that I didn't know about sheep is that a lot of times, especially if it's not real hot, sheep can actually survive without drinking water. They still need water. So the way they do this is they get up like at dawn, and they're eating all this vegetation. And you know what grass looks like in the early morning hours? Covered with dew. And so that's why they could just eat all of that grass, and that's enough moisture for them to have what they need, and that's really cool. But think about a shepherd who has, here's unlimited water, and there's everything that the sheep could possibly need there. We are told to hunger and thirst after righteousness. And that's something that how often do you get thirsty? Okay, guys. You know I get thirsty a lot. Like, I can't go 5 minutes without talking about it made me thirsty. I need that. And that's, I wonder if God created us with those desires, with that longing in us for like thirst and hunger. If he gives us that to teach us a spiritual lesson, that's how we need to feel about him. That we need to thirst after him. And that if we go a day without reading our Bibles or praying or just somehow interacting with the Lord, then we're really going to be missing out. And we're going to be suffering in some way. We understand he's the one that provides that, and we need to be taking advantage of that. He restores my soul. I'll put this here. Let God pick you up. Have you ever felt like you need to be restored? Now, I know I'm not going to get back into the Nehemiah stuff, but there's times where we all need to rebuild, that we need restoration. And actually, restoration, that's a word that came up earlier today. And this is important to understand, that there are times where things aren't going so well, and we need to realize that God is the one who can bring us back. David is the one who wrote this psalm. Just don't forget that. He, of all people, you look at his life and look at all the events in his life. Was there ever a time that you think that he needed restoration, that he needed to be restored? There are plenty of times that we can think. There's one that I know that you're all probably thinking of, and just this major sin that led to other sins, that led to other sins. And he needed restoration from that. He had really wandered far off. There were some other times he did some dumb things too. And he needed the Lord to help him out of that. Well, there's another psalm written by David. In Psalm 42, verse 11, says, "Why are you cast down, O my soul?" That phrase, cast down, actually, I didn't know this either. It was a term talking about sheep. That if you had a sheep that had laid down on the ground, and if there was any kind of like depression in the ground, like a little hole, and the sheep was just like stretching out, trying to get comfortable, that it would get to the point, kind of like a turtle, like it wouldn't flip over on its own, and it gets stuck there. And you know what that sheep does? It dies, unless a shepherd is there to help get it back. That was a little harsh, I'm sorry. But that's what happens when the sheep is cast down. It can't get up. It can't move around. Maybe it's too old. It's too big. Maybe there's too much wool on it. Whatever. But this is a situation that they find themselves in. They're cast down, and they need to be rescued. No, the truth is, there are times in my life where I realize I've messed up, and I haven't done what I need to do, and I feel cast down. Like, I'm terrible, and I shouldn't be involved in that, and I did that, and I'm just so guilty because of that. And all of this panic, the frustration, sometimes what that does is I start thinking, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to fix myself. Do you notice what's wrong with that? We realize that we go to the Lord so He can help deliver us, and He can help fix us. And that's what we need to do. And instead of trying to figure out how to make this mess better, I usually end up making a bigger mess. Like you could probably relate to that, and you've seen those situations play out in some big ways, I'm sure. So part of this is just relying on the Lord and trusting Him to be able to restore us, and He's the one that brings us where we need to go. Which leads to this part. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. He's the one that guides me, and the right paths, we know that we can trust Him to do that. And we ultimately need to understand He's the one that knows where we're going and what we need. One of the biggest obstacles in our way, I think, of walking the right path with the Lord is ourselves. I think sometimes we think my own direction's better, and I know what's best for me, and I know what I should be doing, and I know how to provide for myself here. And we forget to trust in the Lord. But He is the one that can lead us, and we need to trust His directions, and we need to understand that if we were left on our own, I mean, we would make a mess of things. We already have made a mess of things. And if we don't trust in God, we're not going to get anywhere. And like I was saying before about the sheep that are wandering, if they wander on their own, they're just going to make a path, and they're just going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. They're going to eat down all the vegetation. They're going to make a mess of the place. It's going to be covered with disease and parasites, and then they're going to die. That isn't what is best for the sheep, obviously. The shepherd knows better. We need to trust in the shepherd, that He has our best interest in mind, and that we can let Him lead us. I like how this psalm is divided up into half. We have the first half, journey of the sheep, and I'll label this last half, the road to higher ground. Because remember, we started off in the winter, we were there on the ranch, and now they're looking to get up onto, and there was this area that the shepherd would take them to, and it was sort of up on a mountain, like kind of a plateau type deal. And that was ideal grazing lands for these sheep. And as they're getting there, as they're following the shepherd to get there, do you know what pops up? If you try to go to a mountain, if you try to go somewhere to get to a higher elevation, do you know what you kind of have to go through first before you do that most of the time? You got some valleys to get there. Typically, that's the best way to do it. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. We do expect valleys. We expect there to be difficult times, to be scary times. You know, if you're a sheep and you're going through that valley, there's dangers everywhere. If there's like a river running through, it could flood and wipe you out. You also had to worry about predators. Like you're there, you're kind of vulnerable. You're there in the valley, and they can just pick you off. You had to worry about like avalanches, rock slides, whatever. Like there was a lot of dangers that could be there, but that's just what you had to go through. We oftentimes go through valleys. We go through scary times, difficult times. But God is there, and that's what he says in the next part. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Again, we trust in how God takes care of us. Do you know what two objects a shepherd would have with them at all times? Rod and staff. I think that's why he said that. What are those tools used for? Well, the rod was kind of like a club. And if you had a predator come in, you would chase off or annihilate that predator so that it wouldn't get to the sheep. So the rod was like protection against everything else. And the staff had this little curved little end. And if a sheep started wandering off, you just grab it and bring it back in. Now, some people might look at that and be like, I don't know, that comforts you? Why would that comfort you? That's scary. A rod is, coming out with a club? And what if I just want to go my own way? Why do I have to trust in the staff to bring me in? That doesn't seem like that would be a pleasant experience. Why should that bring me comfort? Well, it should bring you comfort because the shepherd sees things that we don't see. And sheep, they might wander off into danger. And you've probably seen those videos of the sheep that keeps getting stuck in the rocks or whatever. I don't know. They do that because they don't see the full picture. The shepherd lovingly, kindly guides them into the ways they need to go. We need to trust that everything God's doing to provide for us, protect us, bring us through, that's for our benefit. He is making sure that He is with us and He is providing for us. So even in those tough times, we understand God's right there and He's going to help us through those difficulties. He also says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And I'll say with this, anticipate abundance. A lot of times when we see this, we automatically think, okay, table. I'm going to set up a table and I have food. And even in front of my enemies, they're not going to bother me. And I used to look at this as ha-ha, enemies, I get food and you don't. But I think it's more of God is saying, even though you have enemies and you have these people who are coming after you, all these dangers, you're still going to be provided for. But there's another thing that I never put together until I heard this. Do you know what they call those areas, those plateaus where the sheep would go to graze? They'll call them tablelands. How convenient. You prepare a table for. So I'm wondering if that's some of the imagery here. That God, the shepherd, is providing us something. These sheep that were going on the journey was looking forward to the tableland. There's a song that we sing sometimes, and you all know, I could see some recognition in your eyes. Higher ground, right? We want to get to higher ground. We're pressing on the upward way. And what does it say we're doing every day? New heights I'm gaining every day. Do you guys like mountain climbing? Most of you know. So I was talking to a friend about Kyle Blevins. Said last week he was in Colorado. And I can't remember how much elevation he said he climbed. It was 1.5 mile trail. It wasn't, and I was like, oh, that's easy. But he was but it was, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 feet in elevation that he's gaining there. I'm like, that's intense. He said, I had to take a lot of breaks. I said, I don't blame you. Because that's difficult. Really, what I want is, I love those mountain views. It'd be cool if you could just sort of airlift me up to the top so I could enjoy it. That would be really nice. That's not how it works, though. To get to the top of the mountain, yeah, you got to go through the valleys, but you got to climb the mountain. And as we're gaining new heights every day, that's not an easy thing. It's something that's kind of difficult, kind of hard to do. And so, but we're increasing. We're always moving in that direction. So even though it's tough, even though it's challenging, even though that we don't like it sometimes, we know God knows that's what's best. And for us to get to that point, we have to trust Him to provide a way for us to get there. And that's tough, that's hard, but that's what we need. Remember the statement that Jesus made? I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. There we go. And so Jesus provides that kind of life for us. And again, we're not talking about physical things, and not saying that he's going to make us rich, wealthy, but we are going to be rich when it comes to, wait, did I say not spiritual things? I don't know. Not physical things, but it's spiritual things. God will make us rich in a spiritual sense. He provides us all of the ways to do that. And that's really amazing. And so what these sheep are looking forward to, that area where they could go and they can graze, and that's awesome for them. But you know what happens? That luscious greenery is great for the sheep, but you know what it's also great for? Bugs, insects. And do you know how annoying bugs can be? Like if you've seen an animal trying to deal with bugs, especially an animal that don't have like arms and opposable thumbs, they can't really do a whole lot for the bugs that are there. And so you got to do something to get rid of those bugs, to like protect them from bugs. You know what the shepherd's remedy to that would be for the sheep? They would actually prepare this mixture of linseed oil, sulfur, and tar. And they would actually like put it on the sheep's head, like anoint the sheep with oil. And it was in such a way that it would protect them from the bugs, and it would keep those nuisances out from them. And I had a list. I'll tell you, the bugs that would like get on the sheep, things like warble flies, bot flies, heel flies, nose flies, deer flies, black flies, mosquitoes, and gnats. It's a lot of flies and gnats and such. So there's a lot of things that could do that. But not only does the shepherd provide a little sprinkling of oil, but it's like so much that it overflows. It's definitely enough, definitely more than enough. Sometimes we need to realize we need to remove the bugs of life. Have you ever been camping or just walking? It gets so hot out here, like the sweat annoys you, right? But also those little bugs, especially those little flies that buzz around, and you try to like swat at them, but you can't get them because they're so fast. Yeah, that's really annoying. Did you know that when it comes to things in my life that are annoyances and things like that, the things that bring me down more often are the little things that add up. It's like the small, minor things in life that all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it just all gets to me at once, and I can't handle it. The big things we can see coming. The small things, we might not realize that sometimes. What we need to do is any of those small things that are trying to pull us away, that are, whatever, we need to let God take those away as well. Then he says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I like to say here, leave a legacy. Now, once that we get to that tableland, once that we, the sheep are on that area, I don't know if sheep ever look at other sheep and you're like, hey, remember what that one sheep did? And just like that, the journey that they went on, they probably don't do that. But like we do sometimes, and we see that. And it's really encouraging to see people who have been able to prevail over a lot of things, especially difficulties in life. It's great to see, especially when God has delivered someone from something like crazy in their life, and they've overcome a lot, addiction or bad circumstances or whatever. And we see that, and we're so thankful to God for helping that person through that. And that's a way that it leaves a legacy, and it makes an impact on the people around them as well. And that's really amazing. And that's something that we need to consider as well. We can be encouraging to other people because of what God is doing in our lives. And that is amazing. But ultimately, what it comes down to is this last phrase. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're going to enjoy God's presence. When you have a relationship with God. Now remember that these sheep were with the shepherd all this whole journey. And it was difficult times. There were times that were good, times that were bad, times that they had food, times that they were anointed. There were so many great things that happened with that. But a sheep needs to stay with the flock, needs to stay with the shepherd. And if the sheep does that, it will constantly be provided for. When we are Christians, when we're part of God's family, when we are part of the flock of God, one of the benefits of that is staying in the flock. Because we realize if we go out of the flock, you know what we don't have anymore? The protection of the shepherd and all of those spiritual benefits that came from that. And so when we read Psalm 23, and we end with that phrase, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, I hope that that's what we think about ourselves too. That truly, that we recognize God's leadership, his authority in our life, and that we are going to let him be the shepherd in our life. He is my shepherd. He's the one that I submit to. And I'm going to enjoy those blessings, and I'm going to keep coming back for more. And I think that's what he wants from us. That's what he wants us to enjoy, and he wants to provide all of this for us. I'm going to read this psalm one more time, and then we'll make some concluding statements. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is what God wants from you. This is what he wants in your life. He wants to be your shepherd. He wants to provide for you. He wants you to come into his flock and be part of that. And he provides us a way to get there. Now that's the thing. If you think about all these sheep in different flocks around, even today, Old Testament times, it doesn't matter. Like, could one sheep decide that it wants to be part of another flock? That shepherd's much better. I want to be part of that. That sheep has no choice. It can't. But the awesome thing about God is he provides us a way to join his flock. And he says, you can become part of mine. I will be your shepherd. So we can trust him. We can put all of our faith and hope in him, and he will provide for us. He asks for our obedience, to our loyalty to him. And so right now is a good time and opportunity to think about that, to understand, is my life where it needs to be? Am I in the flock of God? Am I letting God guide me? And if your answer is no, then we need to fix that. You need to make yourself right with the Lord. And if you have been a sheep of God, if you have been a Christian and you've wandered off, he's ready to bring you back. Just let us know what you need. Do you need to pray together? Do we need to have a discussion? Whatever you need to do to get your life back on the right path. If you are not a Christian and you've never been part of the flock of God, we're ready to help you do that as well. Are you ready to repent, change your life, give your life to the Lord, to confess Jesus as your Lord, to be baptized, have your sins washed away, so you can start walking with the other sheep, with the flock of God? If we can do anything to assist you in obeying the Lord and letting him be the shepherd of your life, please